Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. So this video is an update to the Dart Frog build that we did in a previous video. I've made some decisions and some changes and things that I want to go through and upgrade, and what I'm not going to do and what I'm planning to do. So let's get straight to that one and we'll talk about our plans. So the lights aren't on here at the moment. You can see from the top of here that we do get some ventilation. I've decided that I'm actually going to keep this, but only as a sort of separation tank. If I've got sort of aggression in the Dart Frog terrarium, then what I'll do is I'll utilise this, and we can use this to sort of house colonies of springtails and so on and so forth. I'll quickly show you where we're at with humidity and temperature. So I've got this in Fahrenheit. We're at 72.5. It drops to about 70 and rises to about 74, so that's the perfect range. Humidity in here is 99% pretty much all the time, which is also fine. You'll notice that on this shelf we're empty, and the plan is that I'm going to put two 45 by 45 by 45 terrariums in here. I didn't record any of this, unfortunately. I started by putting the background in, and I've siliconed temporarily some wood in. This is actually upside down, but I'm in the process of using expanding foam to build structure here. I didn't initially intend to put any side structure in, but I am going to put side structure in these. And the one side's done. I put a bit of a shelf in the back. I do need to carve this and cut this down, but you have to leave it 24 hours before you can sort of trim it and work on it. I do need to spin this the right way up, and what I need to do is get some foam around this bit of timber, and I might put another shelf in the back as well, a short shelf. I'm doing these with polystyrene, so what I'm doing is something like that, but on a bigger scale, and then just foaming that into the background. Once the foam's done, I'll coat all this with a aquarium silicone, and then I'll sort of put a substrate layer over the top of that to give it some texture. But I'll film that as we go through and give this a break. And I do need to get this turned over, and I'm going to struggle to move it, so I've got to wait for the nipper to get up, and then we can sort of start carving and stuff. I didn't film this bit, but thought it was worth putting this in. So I've laid down some more expanding foam, just sort of done it like you're icing a cake. The foam that I'm using is this one, and it's got a trigger. You have to turn it upside down, but you can save it because there's a cap that comes with it, so you can reuse that straw over and over again. I think it's called, there you go, pseudo gap filling foam, and I think I did get that from Tool Station. The 750ml tins are around £7.50. They do a smaller one. I sort of regret buying the bigger tins because manoeuvring them around in here is quite difficult. What I have done, I've cut a piece of polystyrene out to create another shelf and just cut it round with a knife and scissors, and I'll foam that up similar to how I've done this one. And I still haven't put anything on the top of that. But the idea of that, as well as giving the frog something to climb up and sort of bounce around, is I can sort of add plants on there, maybe mini orchids or mosses. This will set, it sets pretty quick, and then what I can do is I can sort of carve that out as I need to. It doesn't look too bad as it is, but it's sort of too rounded. It needs more of a jagged edge. I've started carving this out a little bit, but I'll do more of that and get that on video for you guys. But the shelf is literally just polystyrene, as was that one, and as you can see, the top of that isn't yet covered, but I will cover that with a thin layer of expanding foam just so I can sort of trim it down. And then the idea will be that the whole of the back of this I'm going to cover in a silicone and sort of throw substrate at that so it sticks and gives a nice texture. But that's where we're at. I need to let this dry so I can turn it round and do the tops of those. I'll probably do the bottom of that first, and it's sort of tricky to get to, especially with the big tin because of how low it is. I may move it before this sets. I haven't decided yet, but it is pretty tricky to get to and foam underneath that, so I need to work out a way of doing that. I may just silicone underneath that and leave it as that, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Little bit of an update. So we've built these foams. Excuse me walking, I'm really struggling with my back. So we built these foams. We are going to cover these, and what I've done is I've put a couple of shelves in. I've cut out the one shelf and I've put in a, this is obviously looking down from the top, I put in a plant pot with drainage. So the next step is to fill these holes in the foam, either with bits of cut off foam that I've cut off, or silicone. I'm probably just going to go for silicone. But what I'm waiting for at the moment is I'm trying to dry some soil out. I need this to be bone dry, so I've spread some out here on brown paper just because it will take heat from the light underneath, and I sort of keep turning it. I need this really, really dry. And likewise, I'm also drying out a bit of forest moss. So I'm going to silicone this in with the onto those pieces and sort of cover the background in that as well with aquarium safe silicone, so it gives me a textured background. And then the plan is, I hope I've got enough here. I am drying some more, but the plan then is to get that moved and get that up here. So this is the one that we sort of started building. Definitely not going to use this because there's just not enough height in there, and I have lost, I think, my magic potion isopods, and I think it's just down to the humidity is literally too high. So I'm going to keep this. I'll probably put it on a bottom shelf or something, and I'm going to keep this as sort of a quarantine or isolation tank. If I get a couple of three that sort of fight or separate them, I have a way to separate those. But for now, we're just waiting, not for paint to dry, but to soil to dry. And I do have another box of soil down here, and what I've done is just to try and sort of get some of the moisture out of it. Same sort of process, but I've got a heat mat underneath that. There's way too much soil in there for the heat mat to dry, but the room's pretty warm, so we'll just, if we haven't got enough, we'll just dry another load up on the top. But that's sort of where we've got to for now. I'll pick back up when we've sort of got the sides on, or I'll try and video me putting the silicone and the coating on those side foams. Next phase, and I'm an absolute nightmare for forgetting to record stuff. So this is a silicone that's marine grade, so it's safe for aquariums, along with my box of nitrile gloves that I knew would come in handy. So what I've done is the foam pieces, so the one on the bottom, similar to that. What I've done is I've covered it in silicone, like beaded it all over the place, and then I've used the glove to spread that silicone all over the place, making sure I tried to get in as many of the joints as I can. And then I've simply, threw this dried soil over the top of it. This is Cocoa Husk, or Eco Forest, I think, Eco Terrain by Exo Terra, not sponsored. And what I've done is I've threw it all over and sort of patted it down and got my hands in there with a clean glove and patted it down. So the next step is to let that bit cure, and then what I'll do is I'll tip this up and sort of brush it off, and if I need to do some touch-ups I will. But I made sure that I sort of got right in to the timber pieces. Hopefully I've covered enough and right round the edges. And then what I'm going to do, the back is already a blown polystyrene, so this is already a back, but I want to make it all blend in. So it looks like that if I just put a thin bead and some of the finer soil on there, so this is just a test piece, that will get all that texture and contour at the back as well. And I've really sort of gone to town a bit with the shelf with the plant pot in. Now obviously I've filled the plant pot, but I'll take that out. So this is the first stage. Let's see if I can give you a better view of that. And what it will do, let me just open one of these doors. So if you can sort of try and imagine that, it is textured. Now this is a side and the bottom, so it goes that way. So the frogs will sort of have little branches and stuff, and obviously we're going to plant this, but I'm going to do this all over. Drying the soil was the hard bit. I put it in the oven at sort of 60 degrees on some brown paper, and what I did was sort of just let that run. Sorry, just clicking that up. But I'm running, I've ordered another tube of this actually. I'm running out. I might have enough in that tube to do all of this, but I need. It always pays to have a piece handy, a tube handy. So even if I use all of that, I'm not too worried about that. And we'll hopefully get a bit of video if I remember to do that side of it, and then you guys will sort of get the full finished product. But we'll keep going, ticking away at it as and when we can. The silicon probably takes a good couple of hours to sort of cure or start to set, but I'll probably leave that overnight and then go again. And hopefully enough soil comes off this to do the other side. I've got a bit more, but I might end up having to dry another load out, but we'll see. Next day then, so we've tipped it on its correct side, so that's how it will sort of go. Let me see if I can zoom out a bit. So that's how it will look. There's a bit at the back, so this is actually a pot, if I can sort of dig a bit of that out. I did need to do a couple of touch-ups, so particularly around the edge here, and it was just a case of putting some silicone on and pushing it back into the cracks. I will sort of clear that pot out eventually, and I want to cover the back. But this is just sort of giving you an idea of sort of how we started. Now I've left the side a little bit clear because I want some light coming in from the sides, not just the top. And this sort of gives you an idea of what we carved out and the branch in there. And this will obviously get covered and look similar to that terrain. Now what I might do on the back, I might still do it on the sides, is just glue a few bits of moss, sort of dried moss in there to give it a bit more colour than sort of a base soil colour. And this will obviously get darker because there'll be a lot of humidity in here, but that's an update for now, and we'll sort of get that finished. I'll put all the lid in, put my cabling in and what I need to put in there, have a bit of a tidy up, and then we'll start to do all the substrate and drainage layers. I am waiting on sealant. I've got a bit, but not enough, I don't think. So I need to sort of get the other tube of sealant. I reckon I might even need 2 tubes, and I've only ordered 1. So we'll have to wait and see. But that's where we're at this point in time. And just to sort of give you an idea, so it comes off the side of the tank, we've put this bit of driftwood in. So the base will sort of come to just underneath that driftwood, so hopefully the frogs will use this. And I've left this bit of an open area where I'll probably have a bit of a pond, not a deep pond because they don't really swim, but enough for them to sort of sit in and get some moisture if they need that. And I put this other branch in just for a bit of aesthetic really. I quite like the gnarliness of this bit, but this will come up to soil as well, and it looks a little bit like sort of roots coming out of the side of a valley or a ditch with soil and stuff. Rainforest habitat, but we'll get it all done and planted, and then we'll sort of show you that process. What am I like? I keep saying I'm going to video something and then forget to video it. So we've done both of these sides, and what I've done is where there's little holes and gaps, I've put bits of dried forest moss in there, and obviously that will wet up once the humidity gets in there. At the moment we're now waiting, so this was the background. It won't look like this because it is contoured, and what will happen is once this sets, so probably tomorrow, I'll tip this over, I'll give it a brush down with a brush, like a paintbrush. Here's one I made earlier. So I'll give it a brush down with a paintbrush, and then what we'll do is we'll clean it all out, give it a wipe, and then we're pretty much ready to sort of set that up. One thing I do want to do, and I've got these in my Amazon basket, is because of the way the foam is and the sides, I'm going to black the sides out with just some sticky vinyl. So the sides will sort of go black or whatever colour I choose to do with that, but I'm not in a rush to do that. I can do that pretty much at any point. And I'm just going to sort of let this dry now. So I've literally just put on, you can see them in there, I've literally just put on some nitrile gloves, put a bead of sealant everywhere, nice thick bead, spread it all out with the gloves, thrown the gloves off, and then simply coated this with the soil, the dry cocoa husk. What I did do, but I took a lot of it out, so I'm not sure if you can see in the bag there, is I tried to mix in, for the background, bits of the moss to sort of give it a better feel. But as you can see, it didn't sort of mix very well. I probably should have chopped it all up into little bits really, but I didn't. I just tried to rip it up. But I'll put some accents in like these, and obviously we'll probably trim these down once these are done. But I'm quite pleased with the outcome. I think it looks pretty decent, to be honest. Obviously this is the top of the terrarium. This is the front, and it's sort of upside down. So looking forward to getting this finished, and I'll update you guys on the next bit. And I'll do my best to try and remember putting the drainage layer in, my drainage pipe, etc. and sort of go through that process with you guys like we did in the last one, but obviously in a bigger setup. So welcome back. I've got a bit of a wet floor and the reason I've got a bit of a wet floor is that we've been messing around with the AC unit down here, and we've had to sort of adapt the pipe work. But if you see that going out of the wall, that's going to be the drainage. Now the garage floor is actually lower than the outside height, so we eventually put a new vent in. But what I need to do is I need to raise this up. I haven't got a load of room to work with, just that there, and obviously I can take the wheels off the bottom of this and put it on a frame and stuff. But that's what we've been up to. But as with part of that, so excuse the mess, we've moved over the frog terrarium. I do still want to paint the sides where the foam is, and I need to do that both sides. But what I'm sort of keen to do is get this set up and start to establish the bio side of this. I'm going to fill this first with leaker pebbles. So let me just show you these. So I've got everything everywhere as usual. But I'm going to fill this first with these leaker pebbles. So they're like a clay pebble. So I'll get that done and then we'll come back. Speak to you shortly. So we've got the leaker pebbles in. I need to just straighten them up a bit, and the idea of the leaker pebbles is they add a drainage layer. Over the top of that I'm going to put fly screen mesh, and then I'll start building that up with the soil and put the isopods and everything else that I need to put in there. But with that done, I'm just going to give this a quick spray down, and then I'm going to put the mesh in and we'll get that captured as well. So I'll get to doing that. I actually videoed all this and forgot to press record. So I'll go through what I've done anyway. Let me drop that catch open. I'll just open these out. I might raise this soil up a bit more and get a bit more depth out. I haven't decided yet. But what we've done is we threw in, so the light's shining from the tank next to it. So what we've done is we've filled this with soil, so up to the level, trying to sort of separate them. So I might go a bit higher, probably up to the base of this bar. But I was keen to sort of get all my live cultures in and my springtails and stuff. So I've actually thrown the soil mix in, and there should be in that soil mix a load of mini isopods, dwarf white isopods, and we threw a bit of leaf litter in and a little tiny bit of moss. I'll have a bit of a play with this, and I've literally just sprayed it down for now for the first time. Now we have put a couple of plants in, so one of them is a bromeliad that's actually hit the ceiling already, so it's probably better in a much taller tank. I'm not sure what I can do with that, if I can cut the middle stem. So if anyone knows anything about bromeliads, let me know and we'll work out what we can do. And then a pothos, which I'm hoping will sort of grow up and over, and we'll keep on top of that as well. But what I was sort of trying to get at is when I decided to set up the first tank for frogs, the one that I'm now not doing, I'd ordered from Dark Frogs UK a 6-plant pack, and I ended up using some of it in the other tank, and all I had left out of that was the pothos and the bromeliad. So I'm not sure I'm not sure what I'm going to do. There is another bromeliad in there. I may put that in the back wall, and there's a fern, and I've got boosties in here and a Fittonia over the back. But I think I'm just going to order some more plants. I do quite like the creeping plant, and the idea with the creeping plants was I was going to sort of set it off up there, and or set it off sort of below or down in a pot there, and let it sort of creep over so that it's a pot up in that corner. But I do need some plants. I want some foreground plants and stuff. And one thing I've noticed, or one thing I've sort of definitely made a decision on, I think with dart frogs, even the tiny ones, bigger is definitely better. You know, you've got a lot more room to play with, you've got a lot of different area, you can plant that out better. But what I'm going to do with this is just sort of monitor this, keep an eye on this, keep an eye on its humidity. There are bits in the background that haven't properly covered, but I don't mind that, to be honest, and eventually they'll be covered by plants anyway. I do like the way the moss has sort of sat into some of the gaps here, and obviously I'm getting a lot of green light from the thing next to it, if you can sort of see there. So the leaves are actually looking green, but they're not green, they're just bits of jackfruit leaf and stuff like that. But I'll have a bit of a play tomorrow. I'm not great again from a bat perspective, but managing. So I'll have a bit of a play tomorrow. That'll give you guys a bit of a look, and as I say, I may raise the soil up even more to sort of level with that wind, you know, the bottom of that bar. And I think what I'm going to do is cover this and probably put a flap on this corner so I can keep an eye on the water levels, although I can do that from the side, to be honest. But I think I'm going to cover this bottom bit with a bit of black foil, just to sort of hide all that as well. So that's probably as much as I'm going to get done on this video. I do need to order some more plants and get the plants in, and I think what I'll do is I'll end that here. Thanks everybody for watching. If you're not already a subscriber, please consider subscribing. This is ultimately a shrimp channel, and the dart frog enclosure was just a bit of a sidestep for me. I'm not going to do anything with sales of these. The primary goal is shrimp, as you can probably see if you're new here, and this was more of a little project for me as a pet. So thanks for watching, everyone. I'll do a second part to this video once we finish planting and get the frogs in, but for now we'll sort of leave that there, and we'll do an update on part 2. Take care, everybody.